My special Female on Fire guest today is Dr. Safiyah Satterwhite. I had such a great call with her prior to this episode. I felt such a connection, an instant connection with her. I felt her genuinity. I felt her power. I felt her presence. And I was just like, I knew we were going to have a really great conversation to share with you. And that is exactly what went down in this episode. So I'm super excited for you to hear it. She's on a powerful mission to help more women entrepreneurs experience joyful success as they make their mark. She actually stumbled into social entrepreneurship as a young 25-year-old CEO and founded a multi-million-dollar school and has been coaching leaders of million and billion-dollar agencies ever since. At her company today, She Heals the World, Safiyah trains and certifies business coaches worldwide in order to help more everyday entrepreneurs have access to community and high-quality coaching as they build out their dream. In this episode, we are focusing on how to arrive at, discover, and pursue your purpose, what that really means, and also what it means to experience and have joyful success in your life, and what so many women often do as a mistake. It's something that she did. It's something that I've done. And so we're going to go in. It's going to be an awesome episode. I'm super excited for you guys to hear it. So without further ado, let's dive in. Safiyah, I am so excited to have you on this episode in this series. And I usually kick off this every episode really sharing with you and the listeners why I chose you as one of the Females on Fire. And so I'd like to take a second and do that. And really why I chose you is because you came first off recommended to me by one of the other Females on Fire in the series, who was actually episode 1, is our mutual friend, Natalie Jill.
Yes, amazing.
And and I know that you've achieved so much. You've achieved so much over the course of your life, over the course of your career. You know, as I've been researching about you and learning about you, it's been so cool. And I'm so excited for my audience to meet you and learn about you too. And one thing I really love is, I mean, there's so much that's admirable about what you've achieved in your life. But I love that you support women in really building their purpose-driven startups, their businesses with joy and having success with joy. And I'm really excited to dive into purpose and success with joy with you. And plus, by the way, I just want to say that first time that you and I talked, it was like this instant connection, you know. I was like, I feel like I've been friends with you in another life or something. Like, you know, you're just so down to earth. You're so genuine. You're super smart and intelligent. And I'm just so happy to have you on the show. And I'm so excited for the listeners to learn from you today. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Ashley, I am like overjoyed that you even asked. And I feel the same way about you. Your listeners are so lucky to have you every day, gifting them your beautiful knowledge and resources, and kindred spirits, girl, kindred spirits, 100%.
I know, we like both felt it. I love it. I love it. So amazing. So I am really excited to jam out with you about purpose and success and joy. And before we do though, there is something that I'm really excited for you to share, a part of your story. And it's actually, it's really how you arrived to where you are today and in your purpose. I think, I mean, I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something that happened around 10 years ago. Yeah. And you had this spiritual awakening actually in bed one night that sort of led you on this kind of spiritual journey. Can you please share that story with the listeners?
Yeah, I love to share my story. And every time I talk about my story, I always get goosebumps. So maybe I'll start with what I'm doing right now. And I think it'll be helpful to backwards plan into how I arrived to where I am today. So today, thankfully, I'm doing work that I am so blessed to be able to do. I own a global brand that really supports women in creating a life that they are super excited about. And I work with a lot of high achievers. And one of the women that I'm working with right now, I'll give her a pseudonym. Her name is Michelle, and she's a very high-powered attorney. And Michelle was one of those people who did everything right. She got her degree from a top school, got her JD. She moved up the ranks in her law firm very quickly. She has the perfect house, the perfect kids, the perfect husband. Everything looks perfect for Michelle. But there's just one big problem with Michelle. And that issue is that Michelle absolutely hates her life. And when she looks around at her law firm, she can't find anyone else who embodies the life that she wants to have. And the reason why I'm so lit up about supporting women like Michelle and the principals and former CEOs and superintendents that I'm blessed to work with today is because Michelle's story was my story. You know, I was one of those women who had gotten to the top of her industry before the age of 30 and thought I did everything right. I had a multi-million-dollar school under my belt. I had been consulting for the Obama administration and all of these political agencies. And when I arrived to this place that I thought was the dream, I started looking around and feeling like I was sold. This wasn't what I was expecting. I feel completely unfulfilled and almost empty. And so I had to make a decision in that moment, which to me was a threshold moment. These threshold moments are really moments where you could either go left or right. And I had to make the choice to stay in a position that was going to give me more of the same and keep me in a place where 30 years later, I was looking around, counting down to retire. Or I could give myself a chance, take a risk on myself and go for it and travel and try to figure out what creating a new life looks like for me. And I decided to go for it. And so 7 years ago, I handed in my resignation letter to go find myself and travel the world. And here we are today. So I don't know if that fully answers your question. I mean, I'm happy to go into what that story looked like traveling. I think there was so much that I learned about myself through that experience. And if you want me to go there, I'm happy to dive deeper.
Well, I'm so happy you shared that because that's a part I didn't know. So I heard you share a story that happened. And when I mean, the episode was this year. So you had said 10 years ago, and you said you were woken up in the middle of the night hearing a voice. So
Yes.
that was the story that I had heard. And I was like, whoa, that's really, really cool.
Yes.
But I had no idea that you went and you like traveled the world and did that, which is so cool. That's I for the last 2 years, that's what I've been doing, is traveling the world and immersing myself and learning and like really about learning about the world and really about myself through that process.
Yes. Well, it's so funny that yes, you are talking about the story from when I was launching my school. And I think, you know, everything that we do in entrepreneurship is a series of really tapping into your intuition and knowing yourself and being guided by that. And every leap that I have taken has been a result of me really feeling so in tune with what my mind is telling me to do and what my body is telling me to do and what the next step is. And so for my first startup, it was a very spiritual experience with really trying to get a good sense of what should I be doing right now, God? Where am I being called to make a big difference? And once I did that and I got my organization up and running and I had moved up the ranks in this educational sector, then the next question came, which was, well, what's next after that? And after that was where, you know, kind of like you, where you said you had traveled and ended up in Bali. I had too given myself that permission to travel because I didn't have all the answers and I didn't know what was next for my life. And I traveled all around the globe, all through the United States and through Canada and Mexico and Barcelona and London, and I ended up in Paris. And everything that I was looking to find on that voyage and through this whole self-discovery process, I found it in France. And things came together for me in such a confirming way and in a way that only you really can spiritually understand, right? And so I can remember the day like it was yesterday when I was in this cafe in France. I had had a lot of guilt for walking away from the traditional world and allowing myself this permission to go find myself and travel and go on this voyage. And I thought I was so evolved. And here I was sitting in this cafe being served by the waitress. And what she was sensing from me, and I didn't know I was giving this off, but she was sensing the busyness and the hustle that I had been carrying with me throughout my entire life, from the work that I was doing in New York and from building the startup and from kind of pushing my way through every single goal. And I could feel that she was almost like reading my mind by the energy that she was giving me. And when I think back to it, she was right. You know, she was very slowly putting the baguettes on the table, very slowly pouring the coffee. And, you know, me with my, you know, hustle and go attitude, I was thinking like, oh my goodness, hurry up already. Are we gonna we have places to go and people to see. And at one point, her and I locked eyes. And when we locked eyes, I could almost hear her soul saying to me, and she didn't say this in English because she didn't speak English and I didn't speak French. But in French, you have time is vous avez le temps, which is something that is, you know, they're known to say when they're trying to get you to slow down, you have time. And I heard her say this. And I had this out of body experience, almost looking at myself with shame, saying, you know, you can't get it together. You haven't learned to just enjoy and experience life yet. You pushed your way through all of these achievements with building your school and graduating Ivy League and getting to the top of the education industry. And here you are in France, and you haven't learned how to slow down. And for the first time, I looked around and I saw that no one around me was rushing. And that to me was a game changer. It changed literally everything. It changed how I do life. It changed how I feel about life. It moved me from having a goal-focused life to then having a values-focused life. And from there, I continue to learn about French culture. And I learned that over there, you know, what you do is not as important as who you are. In fact, it's often rude to talk about your work and your achievements, right? And so here I am wearing all these achievements on my sleeve and having to figure out what it looks like to just be you. And that was also where my company was founded, where I decided that, you know, this is a place that I can figure out how to create a life that is more grounded in my values than necessarily grounded in what I did and in what I achieved. And I just started sharing and women started following. And surprisingly, that story resonated with women who were high achievers and who also felt the same, that they were their achievements.
Ooh, this is so good. Okay, so good. And you know what? I really want to point out, there's a couple things I want to unpack. I was taking notes here. So my boyfriend, Gerard, he has this analogy that he uses a lot, which I really love. And I actually kind of helped him form the last piece of it. Cause he had like he calls the mountains. Like we have mountains, these journeys that we go through in our lives as leaders and as achievers. And the first mountain is typically like the one that you said, very goal focused, achievement focused, like badges, you know, money, whatever it is, right? Like achievement focused. And then you have the second mountain, which is like for you, it was being value focused, like learning, okay, yes, I've proved to myself, I've learned that I can do all these things. Like I have it in me. I have the ambition. I have the willpower. I have the drive. Like I can make shit happen. Okay. So you have that and you learn that about yourself. And then you're like, okay, and what would that look like if I tied my values and true purpose to it? Like then what could that look like? Can I have can I still have success and live a fulfilled, you know, value driven purpose? And so I love that you said that, because something that I also, you know, what I really want to instill in listeners, and this is something I believe, and I'm really curious to know if you kind of feel the same, Safiyah, is that we don't have just like one singular purpose. I believe, right? Like we have, as we progress in our lives, we have a purpose that can either transform into something totally different or evolve, right? We have multiple at certain points in our lives, and your purpose that you found, I think, which was the one I brought up in the beginning of the episode, that 10 years ago was like, okay, I have a goal. I'm going to like, you had that first mountain, that was your purpose at that point in time. And when you made it to the top, you're like, okay, got it. Something's missing. Here's my journey to my second mountain, right?
Yes.
So then that became your purpose. And now this is where you are, right? So it's like, I just wanted to pull that apart for listeners, because I think so many people get so like, there's all these words like, oh, find your purpose, find your, live your, and people are like, well, I don't like, what's my one purpose, and they make it this like thing, right?
Yes. And that, I'm so glad that you picked that up. And that's been my experience too, because if you would have asked me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even when I first started out my career as a teacher, I would have thought, well, being a teacher is my purpose. And then I would have maybe made myself stay in that industry and played small, and maybe not even have considered that what I'm doing today is teaching, and what we're doing, all the time is teaching. And so it's really hard to identify in one sitting what your full purpose is. I think the most important thing that you can do is focus on your values, what you stand for, and what you want to experience in life, and believe that that will lead you to your purpose. I believe today I'm walking in my calling as a coach, period. Hands down, I'm going to do this for forever. Even if I didn't get paid a dime, I will still be coaching. But at the end of the day, I had to go through those experiences that I went through in order to work with the women I'm working with today, or they wouldn't trust me. And so the whole idea is to take the focus off of purpose, take the focus off of calling, and instead center yourself around your values. Really think about what you want to stand for in life and live your life based on that.
I love it. And I'd love to, so I want to add to that too, because guys, there is no right or wrong values. There is no right or wrong. Like for example, like something that came through super clear as you were sharing that to me is asking yourself right now, you're listening, ask yourself, what's important to you right now?
Yes.
What matters to you right now? Those are your values. Those are your values. Like what's important to you? What matters to you right now? And hey, don't let Sally Sue next door tell you that those aren't the right values and you should not be valuing that, because then guess what? You're going to be living a life out of alignment because you're not being true to your values. There's no right or wrong values. Something that you may value right now may not be something that I value right now. And that could change. For example, when I create a family, which I'm committed to doing, I'm sure that that's going to be like, bam, at the top of my values. And I'm going to be organizing my business, my life around that. So ask yourself truly what matters to you. Write that down right now. That's where you get to go, because what matters to you right now, Safiyah, is not the same thing that mattered 10 years ago, right? It's shifted.
Absolutely. And one thing that you said there was about the whole judgment. And I know I can share this with you because you coach as well. And the first rule of coaching is to suspend all judgment. And so learning how to not judge other people, but also not judge yourself. And people get values and virtues confused a lot. Virtues are really things that are their values, but there's a judgment placed on them. You should be honest. You should be truthful. Those are things we all know, but your values are a lot deeper than that. A value of mine that was, I felt very compromised in the hustle and bustle of life, was the value of health. And I know today that if I'm in a position, or if I'm doing work that doesn't allow me to catch my midday yoga session or run to the farmer's market, on a Tuesday afternoon to cook a home cooked meal, I'm going to feel very uncomfortable and very unfulfilled. And so there's such a bigger question around values that I think people are afraid to explore. They almost poo-poo it like, okay, values, I'm honest, I'm straightforward, I have integrity. It's so much deeper than that. Autonomy is another value. So for your listeners who are entrepreneurs, if you are in a position right now where you don't have independence or autonomy, for me, I was in a big bureaucracy, and what people were making decisions that would affect me, and I really didn't have a say in that. And so as an entrepreneur, you often want to have that control over your life, and that's a value. So you want to look for opportunities around you that will continue to give you that space. So thank you for touching on that judgment part, because I think judgment really does force people to suppress their values and not fully express themselves in that.
Oh yeah, so good. And I loved how you really identify the difference between values and virtues. And that's really important. And I think people do get those mixed up. And I absolutely, I mean, that really landed with me. And I'm sure a lot of female listeners right now of like that feeling of that pressure and needing to, please people and what people around them that they, you know what I mean? Like this fear of judgment, fear of what people are going to think about your values, about what you're up to, like fear of other people's opinions, FOPO, and how that can really hold us back from living out our truth and our purpose and everything. It's so interesting. I feel like everything that we're already talking about right now, and I'm like writing all of this stuff down is really the like some core elements to what it means to create joy in your success. And I know that's something you're super passionate about. And I'm excited to jam out on that. And I'd love to go there next. There's just one last thing that I do want to comment on too, is remember when you said that the reason like women, like you went through what you went through and you experienced that burnout at the top and like that feeling of unfulfillment. And so these women, high level women that you coach, like it's important that you went through that because it served you in serving them, because then they connect with you and they trust you because you actually understand where they're at because you've been there. Guys, that's what it means when you do transform pain to purpose. Like same with me, so many women come to me for support with confidence, which was something that I struggled with so much. Like I had severe social anxiety. I was bullied in school. I used to eat lunch in the girls' bathroom stall. Like I was very, I muted myself. I convinced myself I was this introvert, that I was meant for behind the scenes and all these things. And now, of course, the women that I best serve are the women who also tell themselves that story now, like who are like, they're not confident and they have anxiety. Those are my women. Like those are my people, So
well, I must be your woman because I feel like that too.
Totally. So, and it's like, it just makes us an even more powerful, leader of service. And giver of service, because then we're able to connect with people on a whole different level. So it's like, hey, don't shame or hide or push away your pain. Like use that, like channel it to serve. You know what I'm saying? And you're doing that. I'm doing that. And that's so powerful. That's something I just kind of wanted to point out, because when you were sharing that earlier, it's just stuck out to me. And for those listening, like really think about it, like this is how you own your story and your journey. As you think, how can I use my unique journey, my unique story to serve others? That's purpose.
Well, this really boils into and rolls really nicely into, like you were talking about, this whole idea of joyful success, which I'm super passionate about as well. And one of the first things that I kind of teach and that I do with folks who are feeling this level of emptiness and this feeling of working so hard and getting to the top and not feeling fulfilled, is we do a process called narrative coaching. And it is grounded in working around your autobiography. So there are 4 questions I bring people through. Where do you come from? What do you stand for? What do you desire? And then where are you going? And so that first process of where do you come from really does help people to look at their story. And, this is not something you need to hire a coach for. You can self-coach yourself through these areas if you are feeling empty and unfulfilled and directionless almost. And so you can look at your autobiography and write it. I've worked with women who have written as many as 20 pages to women who have written as few as 2. But the idea is that you will find those areas in your story that are most important that will help to point you to what you should be doing right now. There are threshold moments that we all experience, those crossroads that are important areas of our life that help to define who we are and that help to get us on track to where we need to be. And so giving yourself that permission, I know you're a big journaler, Ashley, and so am I, giving yourself permission to sit down with your journal and saying, what is my story? what have I been through? What did my mom teach me about life? What did my dad teach me about life? What did the people that I know teach me about the kind of woman that I should be today? And how has that formed and shaped my opinions and my views and my traumas and my hurts and my limitations? And so giving yourself that permission to really sit back and write that autobiography. And if you are working with a coach, being able to express and give truth and light and air to that so that you can really start to heal is so important. So that whole idea that you just said of like looking back at your story, finding your pain and moving from pain to power, from pain to purpose, figuring out who you really are and transforming into the person that you desire to be has to start with you owning that story and owning those pieces of you. So I 100% agree. And I think that is a very crucial element to creating success joyfully.
Yes. Oh, so good. And I love those 4 questions. Can you say them one more time? So I want everyone listening right now to write these down.
Totally. So the first one is, where do you come from? And that is writing your autobiography and really digging deep into who you are and the story that you have been told about yourself and what is true. And then the next one is, what do you stand for? So that's the whole values conversation that we've just been having, really thinking about, what do I stand for today as a human? How do I want to be right here, right now? Not virtues, but your values. And then, what do you desire? What do you crave? So there's this, in psychology, there's this wheel of balance, right? That we all know. Let me see if I can get the categories right, but it's your environment, your personal growth, your money, your health, your relationships, right? Those 5 wheel of balance categories. And my company has a different version. Everybody has their spin on it. But essentially, what the wheel of balance says is that when you are not in alignment and not being satisfied in one of those areas, you are going to feel a lot of tension and a lot of unhappiness. And so what do you crave? And asking that question will give you a good sense of, what am I missing right now that I'm not getting? Maybe my financial health is not where it needs to be. Maybe my spiritual health is not where it needs to be. Maybe my relationship it needs some support. And so really being able to rate yourself in those categories so that you can start to recreate anew is important. And one thing I want to say about that, women, when we are busy masks, busyness is a distraction. And when you are busy, oftentimes it will take you out of kilt with things in your life that you need to be working on, but you're saying that you're busy, or you're making yourself busy so that you don't have to focus on it. And so getting present is really like the foundational element to really digging deep and doing this work and designing a life that you're excited about. And you could do that in several different ways. I do yoga. I know you journal. I journal. You can work with the coach. You can do mindfulness and meditation, but really getting clear on, clearing the space so that you can hear your heart, so that you can hear where you need to be moving is such an important element of this. And so that, what do you crave? Those 5 areas will really help to give you some direction once you clear the space and can sit down and focus on it. And then the last piece is of course, where you're going. So, creating that future self. Who do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? Your vision, yes, is that last and final step. And I think a lot of people, they jump straight to the vision part because they want to go to a fancy, sexy vision party, or they want to just get it done. But if you haven't laid the foundation and really gotten clear, there's that word clarity again, you're going to create a vision that is not in alignment with who you are, in alignment with your soul's calling, in alignment with your purpose. And that could really set you in a direction that is not for you. So that vision is the last piece.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. I hope you are taking crazy notes. And so here's something that I just want to point out. And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it again and again, is the reason it's so important. I love that your first step is, really that autobiography and like really owning your story. And because when we identify our origins, we're able to separate ourselves from them. In other words, like the way that you'll realize, oh wait, that scarcity thing I got going, Oh, where did I learn that? I learned that from my mother.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So
Yes.
that's not actually me. That's actually something that I
Yes.
learned. When we are able to identify the source of something, we can then separate ourselves from it and say, hey, look,
Mhm.
got it. That's where it's came from. That's where it's come from. And hey,
Mhm.
it's not working because it's not in alignment with my what values, with what I
Yes.
crave. So, okay,
Yes.
awesome. How I'm going to, here's what I'm going to step into. And so
Yes.
I love this like journey process. And I think it's so important that that each of those steps are followed and in full, like you complete it with soul, heart, and spirit
Mm.
fully, because it's going to feel so good for you to be able to create from a place of knowing and a
Mm.
place of like you actually owning all the things that maybe you've been pretending not to know, that maybe you've been avoiding. Like this is really powerful process. And I'm really excited for the listeners to take themselves through it. And I mean, I do some stuff with my clients where it's like the rewiring and reprogramming, because there's so many,
Yes.
all of our beliefs, like 80% of our beliefs, I don't know the exact stats, but I do know that from the ages of 0 to 7 years old, that's where majority of our beliefs are formed. So it comes a lot from childhood, and so much of it we're just not aware, and we've just taken it as truth. Like we've literally just taken it on because we haven't known, that's what we know.
Yes.
So the processes like these, you guys, are interrupts. They interrupt that, so that you're able to see and create and find and discover a new way moving forward that serves you and your desires and your dreams and your vision. So yeah, I just wanted to touch back on that again, because it's so, so important. I'm so happy you shared that process.
Well, that piece about limiting beliefs that you just mentioned is absolutely huge. And, with the whole scarcity thinking and scarcity mindset, I think you also see it, like you said, with the work that you do with confidence. And there are so many women who continue to play small, not because they're incapable of rising to the next level, but because they had an experience in childhood where someone told them they weren't smart enough to do something, and they've carried that with them throughout their whole life. So they have this like thorn in their side where every time they try to step out of the box and do something new, they hear the words, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough to do that." And so it keeps them stuck for forever. And I couldn't imagine living with that for a lifetime without ever taking a moment to uncover and discover, where did I get this thought? Where did this thought originate? And how do I remove that from my thinking so that I finally am free? And this, telling the story is a great part of doing that.
What Byron Katie, I reference her work a lot. Have you read Byron Katie's work?
Love her.
Isn't she so good? So she asked that question. She has that question. Can I know with 100% certainty that this is absolutely true? Right?
Yes.
Can I know?
Is it true?
Is it?
Yes.
Can I know? Like literally, can I know 100% fact that this is true? And when you, like, for example, you're not smart, right? You're not smart, or you're not pretty, whatever it is that you got teased about when you were young, like, or that you heard one day, you ask yourself, can I absolutely know with 100% certainty that that's true about me? That's an interrupt, because we take these things and what you said is absolutely yes, we shut down. So we shut down parts of ourselves, which is like, this is why I'm so passionate about the work that I do, and like reigniting the fire, reigniting the spark, reigniting the flame, because it's not that, like, all of these things, another way that I like to put it is they're unused muscles. We stopped using our like we were like, I don't know about you, but when we're kids, right? Like we're running around butt ass naked at 3 years old. Like, wow, look at me, And like we didn't give two shit. Like we were like, oh, do I have belly rolls? Like
fearless, completely fearless.
We were just like, boom, hello, like, and so that's what I'm saying is like, we were born with like a abundance of possibilities and abundance of ways of beings. But then at some point something happened where we shut that part of us down. So then now, because we've shut it down for so long and it's been buried, it's been lying dormant, that we don't even know how to use it. Like, it's like this unused muscle. And it feels, as you know, when you go in the gym and you haven't been in there for a long time, the first few reps are like freaking uncomfortable, because you're like, damn, like, ouch. you know, because it's unused. But like when you
Yes.
flex something a lot, like even like this, you know, getting in front of camera, I used to hate it, but now it's like
Yeah.
second nature because I've flexed
Yeah.
the muscles so much. You know what I'm saying? So it's
I'm
just,
glad
it's
it's
like,
second nature for you. It's not for me.
well, you're great. I wouldn't even
There.
known it, sister. But it's like also like, you know, a candle flame. Like if you think about like a
Yeah.
candle flame, right? We have these candles inside of us and they used to be lit. And then at some point we put them out, we blew them out. And
Yeah.
all we need to do is we need to relight that flame. We need to nurture that flame, you
Yeah.
know? So,
And we need support in doing it. And
yes.
I'm not here to go get on a bandwagon and tell everybody, you know, you need to get a coach, you need to work with Ashley right now and get coaching but I do think I have to be honest that you can do tremendous work when you have someone by your side who believes in you.
Yeah.
And when you know that that person has your back and is in your corner and is your support, everything that you put down on your goal list, you have a 95% higher chance of achieving it when you have the support of a
Yes.
coach.
And
It
someone
just,
who's
the
been where
numbers
you've
don't
been.
lie. And
Yeah.
someone who's been,
Who's
and
been where
or
you've
someone who's
been.
been where you've been.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, I can't discount the fact that it is really important to give yourself permission to do what you need to do to get the right support that you need in order to transform and change your life. Yeah.
It's the difference between, I've been using this analogy a lot lately. So I'm sorry to listeners who have heard this for the 1,000th time, but this analogy, well, you know what? Safiyah hasn't heard it yet. So I'm going to share it again.
I hear it.
So it's literally the difference. Like you can do it on your own. Like, of course, like we're not saying that you can't do it on your own. Of course you can. The difference would be, it's the difference between taking a rowboat or taking a jet plane.
Yes.
Right? Like you can get from point A to point B, like you're trying to get from California to Japan on a rowboat. Like eventually you could get there and it's going to be a pretty rough journey and you might get a little like whatever. But it's literally getting a coach and investing in support is like taking the jet plane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the difference.
Yeah. You can do it on your own, but why would you? Why would you?
Yeah.
I can do my pedicure on my own too. Why would I?
Yeah. It's so true. And it's like, it's ask yourself, like, really, how bad do you want it? Like, how bad do you want it? Like, are you, how, and also how over it are you? Like, are you really done with what you say you're done with? Because if you are, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the moment. That's the, as you call, you said,
that
threshold moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That right there is a game changer. And you know, I think when I think back to the changes that I've made in my life, I probably have a very short tolerance for being uncomfortable, which isn't necessarily a good thing. But in these instances, it worked out in my favor. But like you said, it's like, how bad do you want it? How good are you willing to let your life get, essentially?
Yeah.
And so if you're in these spaces where you are uncomfortable and you're not present in that, right? You're doing all of these other things to keep yourself distracted from the reality that you don't like where you're working, or you are in the wrong relationship, or your weight and your health is getting out of control, or your finances are abysmal. What are you putting in the way that's keeping your attention off of the things that really matter, so that you forget about it and so that you push it aside? We got to get present and we got to get clear, and we have to remind ourselves that we are worthy. You are worthy of living your absolute best life every day, all the time. You are worthy of it. And so clearing that room and getting present so that you can figure out what that looks like for you, I think is really going to be the thing that sets us all free in 2021. We have had such a horrific year in 2020, and it's time for all of us to get back on track to creating that life that we really all want. You can do it. Yeah.
So good. And so, yeah. Oh, powerful. I had chills when you were saying that. Okay. So we're nearing the end of the episode, and I'm like, actually, I'm
Time
like,
flew.
I know, totally flew. And I'm like, but you know what? So much, right? Listeners, like so much, and just value packed. So thank you. Like what we went over was just like what you shared, even that process, like that's huge. I mean, the listeners now can walk away with that and I mean, I would love to hear from you guys listening right now, how that went for you. Like, post on social media, tag Safiyah and I. I'm putting everything, by the way, in the show notes for you guys, so you have her and you can follow her and all of her amazing stuff that she posts. Because we want to know, like, this is the work that we get to do, and we make time for what matters to us. So if your happiness matters to you, if joy matters to you, if living a purpose-driven life matters to you, take the time, create the space, because yes, you are worthy of it. Yes. And busy is a lie.
Yes. Busy is a lie. It's a distraction. It's a huge lie.
Okay. So Safiyah, if there's, I don't know if there's any one last thing that maybe you were about to say or didn't get to say or want to add before because I have one final question that I'm going to ask you, which is the question that I end every episode with, which is more personal. But is there anything else that you just wanted to or feel called to add when it comes to purpose and joyful success for the listeners?
Yeah. I have had a lot of guilt about, I used to be really involved, and I still am, in a lot of social justice work and a lot of nonprofit work. And I still love and do that work today. But when I switched to business, I had a lot of guilt about that. And I actually had to talk to my own coach to say that, I feel guilty about going into business for myself. Is this selfish? I went through that whole drama and trauma. And one thing that she said to me was, Safiyah, the best thing that you can do for your community, the best thing that you can do for the people around you, the best thing that you can do for society is to create a life that you absolutely adore. And when she said that, I kind of poo-pooed it like, oh, that's kind of selfish, but it was the most powerful thing that anyone could have ever said to me. And that I want to pass on 100 times over to the people who are listening to this show today. Because realistically, when you enjoy your life, you show up at a higher level, you are able to contribute a part of yourself that would not even be available if you were in positions that keep you burned out or keep you playing small and stuck. And so it may feel like you shouldn't be creating a life that you love because you're just focusing on yourself. And what about all these other things and all these other people? But I can promise you that the best thing that you can do for them and you is to create a life that you love.
Ooh, so good. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I hope you ladies listening felt that. I sure did. So powerful. Powerful. Thank you. Okay. So I have my final question, which is the question that I ask every female on fire that I interview for this series. And it is, we talked about, when we do this to ourselves throughout our life, when we dim our light, when we put out our light, when we, shut down, certain parts of us. I'm curious for you, Safiyah, what is a part of you that you used to hide, that you used to dim, that you used to mute, that you shut away, that you have since reactivated and reignited and along your transformational journey to becoming the female on fire that you are today?
Yeah, such a good question. Oh boy. I think it's what you opened with, which caught me off guard because I was so surprised and given permission to talk about it. But it really is my spirituality. I'm a Christian, and for a long time in the work that I've been in and the traditional and non-traditional spaces, there's a big separation between church and state and between your faith and the work that you do. And today, I've given myself permission to step into that. I do weekly prayers with my community to get us all through COVID. If a client wants to pray on the line during a coaching call, I understand that there are some things that a higher power needs to intervene on, and I leave room and space for that. And so finally being able to embrace that and not only lead with that, but just give people permission to explore that for themselves, for me has been so transformational and so freeing. And so 100% my faith, 100% my faith.
Oh, that's good. And what's interesting is I had one other female on fire, Christy Stone. That was what she shared too. That was what she had shut away and sort of, made herself feel somewhat ashamed of, or like she you know, like she didn't want to be looked at weird, and so she wouldn't, but she had this spiritual side of her that was like repressed. So it's interesting. It makes me it's like, you know, I'm really curious too for listeners right now. I'd love to hear from you guys, you know, what's something that either you have dimmed and you reactivated, or what's something that you're dimming now? What's something that you feel yourself repressing? What's something that you feel yourself, you know, feeling shame around, even though like it's true for you? You know, it's true for you. So I love that. And faith and tapping into spirituality is something that for me has been at the top of my priority list these past 2 years, especially. My journey in this traveling that I've been doing, a lot of it was for me to deepen spiritual connection, because I had an experience at a young age, where I basically was turned off from religion and spirituality as a whole. So I had, and a lot of people do, we have, you know, religious trauma or spiritual trauma. And so we just like shut it down, like forget about it, shut it down, done.
Absolutely.
So it's really interesting. And then like what, you know, when we do that, we literally cut off a part of ourselves. Like we're cutting off our our connection. And so, and as a woman, I will say, I'm just saying, as a woman, like we got gifts, man. Like we are like, right. Like that's why they call it a women's intuition. Like our ability to connect spiritually is heightened. Like it's
so really strong.
It's a powerful, innate, natural gift that we've been blessed with as women. I implore you, I encourage you to tap into that, because that is our power.
It is our
power as women.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you for giving light to that. Thank you for giving light to that.
Awesome. Well, Safiyah, this was such a great conversation, as I knew it would be, because I followed my intuition about you. Okay. I followed my intuition about you. So I was like, we got on this call, you know, you guys, just to give you like a little BTS, like I've been interviewing women and like getting on like short calls. I mean, with women like, oh, do I, you know, for the Female on Fire, are they a good fit? Are they not? You know, really just, and with Safiyah, she's probably the person that I know I knew the littlest about. But like, I probably felt, to be honest, like the strongest, like impact, like the strongest initial, like immediate connection with, you know what I mean? Like I really felt that about you. And I was like, we're going to have a really good conversation. I just feel it in my bones. And I was right.
I love you, girl. I love you. Thank you for that.
I love you. And thank you, Safiyah, so much for giving of your time, of your energy, and just sharing your heart with our listeners today. I appreciate it so much.
Okay. Lots of love, Ashley. Thank you.